CEO dared Maid's daughter to save his firm for millions. She delivered the impossible. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's incredible story. In the heart of New York City, a bustling metropolis where the wealthy and powerful shaped the skyline, one man's empire was on the verge of collapse. Ethan Maxwell, the CEO of Maxwell Enterprises, had built a retail giant that spanned across the United States, from New York to California. His company was his life's work, and he had earned every dollar of his multi-million-dollar fortune through sheer determination and cunning business moves. But now, his empire was teetering on the edge of ruin. For weeks, his team of elite financial advisors had been warning him about the disastrous missteps in his latest business strategy. The company's stocks were plummeting, and the once thriving stores were closing down one after another. The problems were becoming too big to ignore. As the days went by, Ethan became more desperate. He had tried everything. He brought in consultants from every corner of the world, hoping that their expertise would fix what he couldn't. But no one had an answer. No one could help him. The problem seemed insurmountable, and the pressure was mounting every hour. But in the midst of his crisis, Ethan found himself having to deal with something unexpected. The cleaning crew at his office, which he often ignored, had been coming and going every day. Among them was a young girl, a maid's daughter named Lily, who had been quietly working in the background for the past few months. Ethan had never paid much attention to her. She was just another worker, cleaning floors, emptying trash cans, and doing the unglamorous jobs that no one else wanted to do. He had never even learned her name until this moment. On this particular day, when things were looking especially bleak, Ethan's patience snapped. He was pacing in his office, staring at the financial reports, feeling his empire slipping away. In a moment of frustration, he turned to the staff in the room and said, "I dare you to save this company. If you can solve this mess, I'll pay you millions. Fix it." He said it with a sneer, not thinking anyone would take him seriously. But then, something unexpected happened. Lily, the maid's daughter, who had been quietly dusting the shelves in the corner, stood up. She was only 15, but her eyes held a quiet determination that caught Ethan off guard. She looked directly at him and, in a voice that surprised everyone, said, "I'll take that challenge." Ethan was taken aback. He had never expected the quiet girl to even speak, let alone accept such a bold challenge. But there she was, standing in the middle of the room, ready to take on the impossible. "Are you serious?" Ethan asked, still in disbelief. "You think you can fix this mess?" Lily nodded, her face calm but focused. "I'm serious. Let me look at your numbers," she said confidently. Ethan, amused and skeptical, handed over the financial reports. He figured she would fail quickly, and the whole situation would end in embarrassment. But as the minutes ticked by, something surprising began to unfold. Lily didn't hesitate. She pored over the reports, her brow furrowing as she studied the numbers. Ethan watched as she scribbled notes, crossed out figures, and rewrote entire sections of the strategy. She wasn't just looking at the surface. She was digging deep, finding the flaws that everyone else had missed. Ethan couldn't believe what he was seeing. This young girl, with no formal education in business, was uncovering solutions that no one else had thought of. She wasn't intimidated by the complexity of the problem. She was confident, sharp, and focused. And just like that, Lily had turned the impossible into something within reach. I couldn't believe my eyes as I watched Lily work. There she was, a young girl in a maid's uniform, sitting at a polished mahogany desk that had only moments ago been the domain of million-dollar decisions. Ethan, the CEO of Maxwell Enterprises, was still standing, stunned by her ability to navigate the mountain of financial data with such ease and precision. She had barely spoken a word since he handed her the papers, but her hands moved quickly, scribbling down notes, drawing connections between figures that had seemed unrelated to everyone else. The tension in the room was palpable. Ethan stood frozen, his arms crossed, watching Lily work. This was no longer about saving a company. It was about proving something much bigger than that. As the clock ticked on, Lily's focus never wavered. her brow furrowed with determination, and she didn't even flinch when the CFO, the senior advisor, and the other members of the executive team came into the room to watch her. They were all curious now, skeptical, but curious. Finally, after what felt like hours, Lily looked up from the papers, a calm but resolute look in her eyes. She had found it, the solution that no one had expected. Ethan could see it in her eyes before she spoke. She wasn't just a cleaner. She wasn't just a young girl. She was something more, something no one had expected. The company's problem isn't just financial. It's the entire structure. You've been trying to fix the symptoms, but not the root cause, she said, her voice steady and confident. You've been pouring money into departments that are not profitable, and you've been neglecting your customer base. You need to realign the company's focus, go back to basics. This is a retail company. The people you've ignored are your customers. Your marketing strategies are outdated, and your product offerings don't match what your market wants anymore. Ethan's mouth hung open, the words that came from this young girl more cutting than any criticism he had heard in years. The room was quiet. The senior staff exchanged glances, unsure of how to react to what Lily had just said. Ethan stood there for a moment, his mind racing. He had spent years building his empire, and yet this maid's daughter, with no formal business education, had just identified what had taken his best advisors weeks to figure out. He was a businessman. He'd spent his entire life in boardrooms, making decisions that affected millions. But Lily, with her keen intuition and a clear understanding of business fundamentals, had hit the nail on the head. He could see it now. The flaws that he had missed, the areas of his company that had been misaligned for far too long. How do we fix it? Ethan finally asked, his voice quieter now, almost humbled. Lily didn't hesitate. She pointed to the reports she had rearranged, showing Ethan exactly where the changes needed to happen. She didn't just give him a solution. She gave him a roadmap, a detailed strategy that would take his company from the brink of collapse back to stability. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't quick, but it was possible. You'll need to restructure, she said, and you'll have to invest in new technology. The world is changing, and so must you. Ethan nodded slowly, finally understanding the gravity of what she was saying. This wasn't just about saving his company. It was about adapting to a new reality. He had ignored the smaller voices for too long. It was time to listen. I'll do it, he said, determination returning to his voice. I'll do whatever it takes. I watched as Lily carefully laid out the new strategy for Maxwell Enterprises, each step more precise than the last. Ethan, the CEO, had agreed to follow her plan, but now the real challenge was about to begin. The company's fate rested on the decisions they would make in the coming days. Lily, still only 15, had shown more business acumen than Ethan had ever expected. It wasn't just about numbers anymore. It was about rebuilding the company from the ground up. The financial reports had been a starting point, but now they had to deal with the underlying cultural issues, the disconnect between the executives and the employees, and the outdated practices that had taken root over the years. Ethan had always been a man of action, but as he sat across from Lily, he realized this was going to be more than a quick fix. It would take time, effort, and a complete overhaul of the company's structure. Over the next few weeks, they worked together, meeting daily to review the progress. Lily's presence in the boardroom had become a regular fixture, and each day, she surprised Ethan more. She wasn't just making suggestions, she was leading. The senior executives, once skeptical, were starting to listen to her, even if they didn't fully understand where she was coming from. They saw results. Within a month, the company's internal structure had been revamped. New systems were in place, the marketing strategy was overhauled, and the customer service team had been retrained to better meet the needs of their clients. Ethan was amazed at how quickly the changes took effect. The company's stock started to rise again, and for the first time in months, the boardroom meetings were filled with optimism rather than dread. One afternoon, as the sun began to set over the city, Ethan and Lily sat down in his office, reviewing the progress. The tension in the room had lifted, replaced by a sense of quiet accomplishment. Ethan looked at Lily, his expression softened by gratitude. I don't know how you did it, he said, his voice sincere. But you saved this company. You've done the impossible. Lily didn't respond immediately. Instead, she turned her attention to the city skyline outside the window. It wasn't me, she said softly. It was you. You were the one who chose to listen. Ethan was taken aback by her response. He had expected a simple thank you or a modest acknowledgement of her role, but Lily wasn't interested in praise. She had done what she had to do, not for recognition, but because she believed in the work. The real work is just beginning, she continued, her gaze focused on the horizon. You've built something amazing, but if you want it to last, you have to keep listening. The world changes every day, and so must you. Ethan sat back in his chair, taking in her words. She was right. He had spent so many years believing he had all the answers, but in that moment, he realized that the true strength of his company wasn't in the numbers or the strategy, it was in the people. Thank you, he said, his voice filled with humility. You've taught me more than I could have ever learned in a boardroom. As the evening light faded, the two of them sat in silence, each contemplating the lessons learned in the last few weeks. The company was saved, but more importantly, so was Ethan's understanding of what it truly meant to lead. I sat in Ethan's office, watching as the city lights began to twinkle in the distance. The storm that had once threatened Maxwell Enterprises had passed, but now, the real work was about to begin. Ethan had saved his company, but the lessons he had learned from Lily were far from over. He could no longer ignore the voices that had been left unheard for so long. He had spent so many years at the top, making decisions from his high-rise office, but now, he knew the true power lay in the people who had been with him all along. Lily had not just saved his business. She had changed the way he saw everything. It was easy for Ethan to get lost in the numbers and the charts, to get swept up in the ambition of building a successful empire. But Lily, with her quiet strength and unwavering determination, had reminded him of something much more important: the value of human connection, the importance of listening, and the need to always be willing to learn. Ethan knew that his journey wasn't over. In fact, it was just beginning. He had already started implementing Lily's strategies, but the real challenge would be maintaining this new mindset, this new way of thinking, in the long run. As he sat back in his chair, he began to make plans to address the internal culture at Maxwell Enterprises. It wasn't enough to fix the external problems. He had to focus on the foundation as well. Ethan spent the next few weeks reaching out to employees, from the entry-level staff to the senior executives. He wanted to hear their voices, to understand what they had been going through, and to learn how he could support them moving forward. He was determined to create a workplace that was as innovative and adaptable as the company's business model. It wasn't easy. Old habits died hard, and there were moments when he questioned whether this new approach would truly work. But he kept at it, driven by the belief that change was possible. Lily had been the spark that ignited his transformation, but now, it was up to him to keep the flame burning. A few months later, Ethan found himself standing in the middle of the Maxwell Enterprises headquarters, surrounded by employees who were eager to contribute to the company's success. He had made significant changes, but it wasn't just the structure or the systems that had shifted, it was the energy in the building, the spirit of collaboration and shared purpose. Ethan looked around at the people who had been with him from the beginning, and for the first time in a long while, he felt proud of what they had built together. The company had become more than just a business. It had become a community. Ethan could see that the changes were working. Productivity had increased, customer satisfaction was higher than ever, and the company's stock had risen to new heights. But it wasn't just the numbers that mattered anymore. Ethan had realized that the true success of Maxwell Enterprises wasn't measured in profits or growth. It was measured in the way people felt about the work they were doing. It was measured in the relationships they built, the trust they shared, and the respect they had for one another. As Ethan looked out over the bustling office, he felt a deep sense of gratitude. He had been given a second chance, and he wasn't going to waste it. He owed everything to Lily, the maid's daughter who had dared to speak up when no one else would. She had taught him more than any business book ever could. And as the company continued to thrive, Ethan knew that the lessons he had learned would stay with him for the rest of his life. I sat in Ethan's office, reflecting on the whirlwind of changes that had swept through Maxwell Enterprises in the past several months. The company had been saved, yes, but Ethan knew that the real work was just beginning. He had made bold decisions, reshaping the internal culture and addressing the root causes of the company's decline. But he felt an undercurrent of doubt. He was no longer the same man who had walked into this office months ago, blinded by his own ego and a rigid sense of control. Now, he had learned the value of listening, of trusting others, and of embracing change. But could he maintain this shift in perspective? Could he ensure that the company would continue to thrive without falling back into old patterns? As if reading his mind, Lily appeared at the door. She had been an integral part of the transformation, and her presence in the company was now more than just symbolic. She had become a trusted advisor, a reminder of the values Ethan had almost lost sight of. She had been with him from the beginning, never expecting anything in return except the opportunity to prove herself. And prove herself she had, in ways no one, especially Ethan, could have predicted. "Ethan, you've done the hard part," Lily said, breaking the silence. "You've admitted that the company needed change. Now, you need to make sure that change lasts." Ethan looked up at her, a hint of uncertainty in his eyes. "What do you mean?" "I mean, that change isn't just about fixing things when they're broken. It's about creating a system where problems can be addressed before they even start," Lily explained. "You've done well with restructuring the company and improving the bottom line. But if you want this to be sustainable, you have to build a culture of constant growth." Ethan nodded slowly, understanding what she was saying. "You're right," he said quietly. "I've been so focused on fixing what's wrong, I forgot about fostering what's right." They sat in silence for a moment, letting the weight of the conversation sink in. Ethan realized that the company's future wasn't just about fixing financial gaps or revamping the marketing strategy. It was about creating an environment where innovation was encouraged, where employees felt empowered to speak up and contribute ideas, and where the company could continuously adapt to an ever-changing market. Over the following months, Ethan worked with Lily to implement a new leadership development program. They created spaces for open dialogue between employees at all levels, ensuring that every voice had a chance to be heard. They also began investing in technology and employee training, encouraging a culture of lifelong learning. It wasn't easy, and not everyone was on board with the changes. But as the months passed, Ethan started to see the results. Productivity improved, employee satisfaction soared, and the company's reputation as an innovator in its field was solidified. Maxwell Enterprises wasn't just surviving anymore, it was thriving. And as he stood in the middle of his bustling office one afternoon, watching the team work, Ethan realized that the company he had built was no longer just his. It was a collective effort, a community working toward a shared goal. It wasn't perfect, but it was stronger than ever. And none of it would have been possible without Lily, the maid's daughter who had dared to challenge him when no one else would. She had not only saved the company, she had changed his life. As Ethan looked out at the bright future ahead, he knew one thing for sure. This time, he would never stop listening. I sat in the newly renovated conference room at Maxwell Enterprises, staring out at the skyline that had once seemed like a symbol of my success. Now, it represented something more, a reflection of the change I had gone through over the past year. The company was thriving. Again, but more importantly, the people inside it were thriving. It was a lesson I had learned the hard way. No matter how strong the foundation of a business is, it is the people that truly make it stand tall. It had been months since Lily had helped me turn everything around, and the transformation was nothing short of remarkable. But now, I found myself at a crossroads. I had been so focused on rebuilding Maxwell Enterprises that I had almost neglected the very thing that had made it all possible, the relationships I had neglected in my pursuit of success. Lily had not just saved my company, she had saved me from myself. I had been so caught up in my own world, consumed by ambition, that I had forgotten what truly mattered: listening to others, understanding their needs, and giving them the respect they deserved. The phone rang, snapping me out of my thoughts. It was Lily. "Ethan, there's something I think we need to talk about," she said, her voice calm but urgent. I could hear the weight in her words. "What is it?" I asked, trying to shake off the unease creeping up on me. "It's about the future. About the company. We've made a lot of progress, but there's still something missing. It's time to take the next step." I leaned forward in my chair, intrigued. "What do you mean?" "You've built a great business, Ethan," she said. "But you haven't built a legacy yet. It's time to think about what kind of company you want Maxwell Enterprises to be in the long run." I paused, her words sinking in. I had focused so much on saving the company that I hadn't really thought about the long-term impact we could have. "You're right," I finally said. "I've been so focused on survival that I forgot about the bigger picture." Lily continued, "It's not just about turning a profit anymore. It's about creating something that will last, something that can inspire future generations. You have a chance to build a company that reflects your values, your vision, and the impact you want to have on the world. As I listened to her, I realized she was right. I had been playing it safe, focusing on short-term gains, and now it was time to dream bigger. I had built a company that was strong, but I wanted to build something that would leave a mark on the world. What do we do next? I asked, eager to take the next step. We need to start thinking about sustainability, about giving back to the community, about being a company that cares about more than just profits. It's time to create a vision that goes beyond the bottom line. Over the next few months, we began to shift our focus. We started incorporating sustainability into every part of the business, from the products we sold to the way we treated our employees. We launched initiatives that supported local communities, partnered with organizations that aligned with our values, and made corporate social responsibility a priority. Maxwell Enterprises was no longer just a business, it was a movement. And through it all, Lily remained by my side, guiding me with her wisdom and reminding me that true success isn't just about what you achieve, it's about the positive impact you leave behind. As I sat in the conference room, looking out at the city once more, I knew that the work we had done wasn't just about saving a company. It was about building something that would stand the test of time. We had done the impossible, and now, we were ready to do something even greater. I stood in the lobby of Maxwell Enterprises, watching as the employees filed in for another busy day. The company was thriving, but it was more than just the profits or the success that had changed. It was the energy, the sense of purpose that now filled the air. For the first time in years, I felt proud of what we had built together. But even with all the progress, I knew that nothing lasts forever unless you keep evolving. That thought lingered in my mind as I remembered the lessons Lily had taught me, about listening, about the power of trust, and the importance of creating a legacy that went beyond just business. We had created something amazing, but it was now time to ensure that the values we had embraced would continue to guide us for years to come. I called for a meeting with the senior leadership team. It had been a few months since we had implemented the new initiatives, and I wanted to take stock of where we were and how we could continue pushing forward. As the team gathered around the conference table, I couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude for the way things had changed. We had faced challenges, but we had come through stronger, united by the belief that we could do more than just turn a profit. We could make a difference. I want to start today's meeting by thanking each of you for your hard work and commitment to this transformation. I began, my voice steady but full of appreciation. We've made incredible strides, but I want us to keep pushing forward. We can't stop now. The room was quiet as everyone listened, their eyes focused on me. We've built a company that not only adapts to change, but drives it. But that's not enough. We need to think bigger. We need to continue to lead by example, to keep innovating, and to make a lasting impact on the world around us. I paused for a moment, letting my words sink in. I've realized that the legacy we leave isn't just about what we achieve, it's about how we do it, and who we become in the process. The team nodded in agreement, their expressions a mix of excitement and determination. They were ready for the next phase, ready to take Maxwell Enterprises to new heights. Over the next several weeks, we worked together to implement new programs focused on sustainability, social responsibility, and community involvement. We launched initiatives to reduce our carbon footprint, partnered with organizations that supported education and job training for underserved communities, and set up programs to support the mental health and well-being of our employees. The response was overwhelming. Employees at all levels felt a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that they were part of something bigger than just a business. They were contributing to something that would leave a positive mark on the world. As the company flourished, I couldn't help but reflect on the journey we had taken. From the brink of collapse to a company that was now a model for others to follow, Maxwell Enterprises had become a true leader in its field. But the real victory wasn't just the success we had achieved. It was the impact we had made on the lives of our employees, our customers, and the communities we served. As I sat back in my office one evening, looking out over the city once more, I felt a deep sense of fulfillment. We had done the impossible, and we had done it together. And as I thought about the future, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we were ready to face them. Because we were not just a company, we were a movement, and we were only just getting started. I stood at the front of the massive auditorium, looking out at the sea of faces in the crowd. It was the day of Maxwell Enterprises' annual conference, a day to celebrate our success, our progress, and the incredible journey we had been on together. But as I scanned the room, I realized that today wasn't just about celebrating where we were. It was about looking forward to what we could still become. The company had come a long way since Lily had first walked into the boardroom, and I had learned more in the past year than I had in the last decade of my career. Our transformation was no longer just about fixing broken systems or turning a profit. It was about building a culture that would last, a company that would continue to grow and inspire others for generations to come. As I stepped onto the stage, the lights dimmed and the audience fell silent. This was a moment I had never expected. A year ago, I had been standing at the edge of collapse, unsure if I would even be in this position today. But now, here I was, looking out at hundreds of employees, partners, and friends who had all contributed to the company's remarkable turnaround. I took a deep breath and began to speak. I stand before you today not just as the CEO of Maxwell Enterprises, but as someone who has been changed by all of you. I began. When we first started this journey, we were on the brink of failure. We had lost our way, but through hard work, trust, and a commitment to listening to each other, we've turned this company around. And it's not just about the numbers, it's about the people. It's about the culture we've built together. I paused for a moment, letting my words sink in. When I look out at this room, I see a company that is united. I see people who are willing to challenge the status quo, to speak up, and to make things better. I see a team that believes in what we can do, and that's what makes us unstoppable. But we're not done yet. The audience was listening intently now, their eyes focused on me as I continued. We've achieved so much, but the world is changing faster than ever. If we want to stay ahead, we need to keep evolving. We need to think bigger, act bolder, and push ourselves further. This is just the beginning. Our legacy is not just what we've accomplished, it's what we're going to do next. The crowd erupted into applause, and for a moment, I could feel the energy in the room shift. It wasn't just about what I had done, it was about what we had all done together. And that feeling, that sense of unity and shared purpose, was what would drive us forward. After the speech, I made my way to the back of the room, where Lily was waiting. She had been with me every step of the way, guiding me when I needed direction, challenging me when I needed to grow, and reminding me of the importance of staying true to our values. As I approached her, I could see the same quiet determination in her eyes that had always been there. She smiled at me, a knowing look in her expression. "You did it," she said softly. "We did it." I corrected, my voice filled with gratitude. We had done it. Together. And as I looked around the room, I knew that this was just the beginning of something even greater. The world was changing, and Maxwell Enterprises was ready to lead the way. We had learned the hard way that success wasn't just about profits. It was about people. And now, with the lessons we had learned, the future was ours to shape. As the days passed, Maxwell Enterprises continued to evolve, but now, it was not just about the business. It was about the people who had made this transformation possible, the ones who had believed in the company's future and worked tirelessly to turn things around. The changes we had made were no longer temporary fixes. They had become part of the fabric of the company, woven into every decision, every interaction, and every plan we made moving forward. The company had come to represent something much more than just financial success. It had become a place where people mattered, where growth was celebrated, and where every person, regardless of their role, had the opportunity to make a meaningful impact. I had learned, over the course of the past year, that leadership is not about holding power. It's about empowering others. It's about creating an environment where everyone can thrive, regardless of their background or position. The success of Maxwell Enterprises was no longer about me or my vision. It was about us, as a team, working together toward a shared future. It was about lifting each other up and doing what was right, not just what was easy. As I walked through the halls of our headquarters one afternoon, I couldn't help but reflect on how far we had come. The building was the same, but it felt different. The energy in the air had changed. People were smiling, talking, sharing ideas. There was a sense of excitement, of possibility, that hadn't been there before. The halls were filled with the sound of creativity, and the company's mission had become a personal one for every employee. It wasn't just about selling products anymore. It was about making a difference. And as I walked into the conference room, I saw Lily standing at the front, presenting the latest initiatives to the leadership team. She had become an integral part of the company, and her influence was felt in every corner. She was no longer just the maid's daughter who had saved the company. She was a leader in her own right, someone who had shaped the future of Maxwell Enterprises in ways no one could have predicted. I watched her speak with confidence, knowing that we had reached a place where change wasn't just possible, it was expected. As the meeting wrapped up, Lily came over to me, her face lit with the same quiet determination that had always been there. "We've come a long way," she said, her voice soft but sure. "But this is just the beginning. The real challenge now is to keep growing, to keep pushing ourselves, and to make sure that we don't forget why we started this journey in the first place." I smiled, knowing that she was right. The journey had only just begun. We had laid a solid foundation, but now, it was time to continue building, to reach even higher, and to keep striving for a better future. I looked around at the team, at the people who had worked alongside me through the toughest moments, and I felt a deep sense of pride. We had done the impossible, but it wasn't just about the success we had achieved. It was about the way we had achieved it, together. "Thank you," I said to Lily, my voice filled with gratitude. "We couldn't have done this without you." She smiled back, and for a moment, everything felt right. We were no longer just a company, we were a family. And as we looked ahead to the future, I knew that the best was yet to come.